And people always think in this dichotomized sort of thinking, right? That they don't need to. They make this unnecessary juxtaposition that either you have to be completely against all Muslims and hate them all, or you have to be completely for Muslims and love Islam completely and love all Muslims. You don't have to think like that, right? And you'll be surprised how many people actually do. You can think that there is some good parts of Islam, but also there's some problematic parts of it, and we need to address those issues. The niqab and the burqa are not requirements of Islam. In fact, many would argue that they're not even part of Islam. If you actually, anybody who has any knowledge of Islam beyond what's taught at the local Salafi mosque, for example, like myself, who's been to university and studies Islam, they know that this is an Arab tribal custom that is steeped in misogyny and patriarchy and the desire to control women that has been superimposed on Islam, and that was in fact there before Islam came.
You know as well as I, you know better than I do, that millions, hundreds of millions of Muslims who love their Quran and love their God and love their Prophet would never act in such a way. Aren't texts were written a long time ago open to interpretation, and ignorant people, malicious people sometimes like these can be manipulated?
Absolutely, and you know, a lot of Muslims would use their religion to say, this is the reason why I don't do these things, right? So of course that point needs to be made. And but the problem is when people ignore what it does say in their religion, right? So if I'm a young Salafi youth and my imams are telling me these things, okay, and they never repudiate them, which they never seem to do, and they say things like, you know, sex with slaves is allowed in Islam, but that was a long time ago, we don't really do that anymore. That's not a real sort of a solution to the problem. So basically the professor mentioned about Christianity being, or Christian theology being male dominated. So towards the end of the class, I mentioned that, well, you know, in Islam, that idea that woman is created from a man's rib is also in Islam. And to this, a Muslim girl in my class responded saying, well, you know, in Islam, women get a lot of rights. Islam is great for women's rights and all that. So I thought it was a pretty easy rebuttal to say, well, you know, in the Quran it says a husband can hit his wife, and it doesn't say a wife can hit her husband. The next day, the professor came to me after class and said, I received some complaints, and you know, basically was trying to suggest to me that I shouldn't criticize Islam in his class. So basically he said, well, you know, Christianity has a long theoretical criticism starting from Marx and all this. Yeah. So suggesting that Islam doesn't have that and therefore we shouldn't criticize Islam. Also he said, well, you know, isn't there other places where you can sort of express that? So he didn't seem to understand the importance of this sort of back and forth among Muslims, right?
Now, Athar Khan is a self-critical Muslim, his words, who was incensed by some ads he saw on the TTC depicting Islam. He's here to explain this story. So the ads were very positive about Islam.
Right.
And you disagreed?
Yes. If you actually want to do a service to the Muslim community, why not repudiate those parts of Islam that are encouraging this sort of radicalization and extreme behavior? That would be a service to Islam. This doesn't help anybody.
I agree. In the defense of the woman, one of the women who was behind it, she would argue that she came to this country and found there were a lot of people who didn't understand Islam, and she was trying to present what is the religion of most Muslims, which is not violent, which is devotion to God and the Prophet Muhammad. So she would probably have but I see what you're saying. You work with the police.
Yes, I'm a member of the Muslim Consultative Committee of the Toronto Police. And you know, we do have a lot of conservative Muslims on there. So I would imagine that the secular Muslims like myself also deserve representation.
Well, they do, but how do other Muslims react when you say these things?
Well, you know, if you actually have a discussion, an open discussion in a safe space with them, a lot of them agree with me.